Welcome to tonight's streaming of Culture Ed Online. Music, culture, and education right at your fingertips. UTM Music invites you to enjoy and learn with us. Stay tuned for more Culture Ed sessions this semester every Thursday at 8 p.m.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Dr. Cheney John and me in our adventures in vocal art music, written by female composers from 200 years ago until the current times. I have long developed a love and admiration for work by famous female composers of the past, like Clara Schumann, Amy Beach, Fanny Mendelssohn, Alma Mahler, or Nadia Boulanger. But I wasn't familiar enough with less well-known female composers whose work has not been performed widely, yet deserves much more attention, publicity, and praise. About 3 years ago, I worked on a commission with a contemporary female composer, which motivated me to launch a series of song recitals featuring the talented work of these special women. These composers and their efforts inspire me and enrich my life very much. So, with this recital, I would like to share with you their and my endeavors, and expect there will be many more to come. Although we are presenting this recital via a screen, we hope it is not a barrier in connecting with you. Once again, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this recital. Have a wonderful evening. Clara Wieck Schumann was a respected German composer and one of the greatest concert pianists of the 19th century, active on the stage for more than 60 years. Clara's parents divorced when she was 5, and she was left in the custody of her father, studying piano under his tutelage. After a legendary legal battle with her father, Clara married the composer Robert Schumann, who had been one of her father's students. Although her husband strongly supported Clara's efforts at composition and contacted publishers for her, his work took priorities over hers, and for many years her composing and practicing were relegated to hours when her husband would not be disturbed. While Clara has written beautiful piano works, her songs are perhaps the most well-known and most performed. All her songs exhibit great feelings, power, and sensitivity to the texts. Liebst, Sturm, Schönheit, and ist gekommen are from the set of songs Opus 12 that was among her first publications after marriage to Robert Schumann. Ich stand in dunklen Träumen was presented to her husband as a cycle of songs written for their first Christmas together, and was later categorized as Opus 13, number 1. Like her husband's songs, Clara's songs make use of beautifully written piano preludes and postludes.
ist gekommen, in Sturm und Regen, im Sturm und Loom, mein Herz entgegen. Wie kann ich ahnen, dass seine Bahnen sich einen sollten meinen Wegen? Ist gekommen, in Sturm und Regen, hat genommen, mein Herz verlegen. Nahm das Ich seh es heute, denn bleibt mein auf allen Wegen, denn bleibt mein auf allen Wegen, dann ist gekommen des Frühlingssegen, der Freund zieht weite, ich seh es heute, denn bleibt meine Abendwege.
Josephine Lang was a prolific and accomplished German composer of songs. With the help of her close friends, which included the Schumanns, Josephine became one of the most published female composers of the period. She wrote approximately 300 songs, of which more than 150 were printed, and more than half her song output dates from the 1830s. Her style was strongly influenced by Schubert, Schumann, and Mendelssohn, the latter being Josephine's counterpoint teacher for a short period of time. After her marriage to the poet and law professor Christian Reinhold Höslin in 1842, Josephine gave priority to her role of wife and mother. Although several collections were published in the 1840s, only a few pieces were written during her marriage. Josephine chose song texts that mirrored the feelings and events of her own life. She wrote, "My songs are my diary, and most of them share two common themes, love and nature. The two songs I included in this program are examples." Josephine set over 40 songs to her husband's poetry, and Ob ich manchmal Dein gedenke is one of them.
manchmal dein Gedenke. Wüsstest du, wie seligst du, dir auch noch die Schatten lenken, träumen die Gedanken zu. Tag und Nacht und alle Stunden, oh, dies alles sagt es nicht. Du, seitdem wir uns gewunden, bist allein, was aus mir spricht. Alles andere seh ich wanken, mich her wie Traum und Schein. Dein Gedanke ist mein Leben, dich zu leben, ist mein Sein. Dich zu leben ist mein Sein.
Pauline Viardot was one of the most celebrated opera singers of the 19th century. She was the second daughter of the famous Spanish opera singer, composer, and singing teacher Manuel Garcia de Senia. Pauline married Louis Viardot, a distinguished French writer. After enjoying a successful singing career for over 25 years, Pauline returned to Paris, where she taught at the Paris Conservatory and composed. Pauline's compositions are dominated by vocal music. Of her approximately 100 songs, more than 90 were published during her lifetime, and most of them are set to French poetry, along with some in Italian, Russian, and German. Her songs are a blend of French, Italian, and Spanish styles. The two songs I'm performing showcase some of the typical moods from her songs, the haunting Evocation and the folk-like Luli.
Rugiada jamais si devient volage, si doit toujours m'abandonner. Le village, le cabriolet, et moi-même avec le village.
Amy Marcy Cheney Beach, also known as Mrs. H.H.A. Beach, after her husband, was an American composer and pianist. She was the first American woman who had written a symphony and was celebrated during her lifetime as the foremost woman composer in the United States. While she has composed over 300 musical works, her best works are arguably the small ones, including her 120 art songs. A gifted music prodigy, Amy had already given a handful of concerts playing pieces by Chopin and Beethoven by the time she was 7. She performed her debut concert with the Boston Symphony Orchestra, which was a great success. Amy married a distinguished Boston physician, Dr. Henry Harris Aubrey Beach, when she was 18. After their marriage, Amy paused her performing and concentrated on composition, as Dr. Beach had a large practice and could not spare time for his wife's developing career. In return, he avidly supported Amy with funding and connections, and was reportedly very proud of his wife's accomplishments. After her husband's death, she continued to compose prolifically and resume an active concert career promoting her music. Despite her successes as a composer, critical assessment of Amy's music was not always favorable, as she was a woman. Fortunately, these views are being reassessed, and she is now considered as a groundbreaker for coming generations of female composers. The Cycle 3 Browning Songs was commissioned by the Browning Society of Boston in celebration of poet Robert Browning's birthday. The 3 songs were based on a section from one of his more famous works, Pipe Passes.
There is at spring, and days at the morn, mornings at 7, the hillsides do burn. The years at the spring, and days at the morn, the larks on the wing, the snails on the lawn. God's in his hand, God's in his hand, all's right with the world. away, and the bird estranged. The wind has dropped, and the sky is deranged. Summer, summer has stopped. Summer has stopped. But a day, and the world has changed. Look in my eyes, wilt thou change too? Look in my eyes, wilt thou change too? Should I fear surprise? Should I find aught new in the old and dear, in the good and true? With a changing year, look in my eyes. Look in my eyes. Wilt thou change too? I send my heart out to thee, all my heart, and this my singing. For the stars help me in the sea, and the sailors part.
Florence Prize is considered to be a groundbreaker for African American composers. She is best remembered as the first African American woman in the United States to have a symphony performed by a major orchestra, the Chicago Symphony in 1933, and was the first African American woman in the United States to gain widespread recognition as a symphonic composer. After early training with her mother, Florence studied organ, piano, and composition at the New England Conservatory in Boston. Upon graduation, she returned home to Arkansas and taught for a short time at the Cotton Plant Academy and Shorter College for a total of 4 years, and then taught at Clark University in Atlanta, where she served as head of the music department for 2 years. She then moved home again to marry Thomas J. Price, a lawyer. Due to much racial unrest in the South during the time, Florence and her family moved to Chicago, where she began a long period of compositional creativity and study with several prominent teachers. She achieved national recognition when she won the first prize in the Wanamaker competition for her symphony in E minor. Florence composed over 300 works in her lifetime, including art songs, spirituals, chamber music, symphonies, organ and piano works, and work for violin. Unfortunately, most of them remain unpublished. Her compositions exhibit a mixture of styles, incorporating the classical European tradition and the sound of African American spirituals. With more of her music getting recovered nowadays, Florence is finally receiving the attention and honor due a major composer. The 3 songs I'm performing tonight are taken from the collection of 44 art songs and spirituals, the first ever publication available of this work.
Out of the south blew a soft, sweet wind. And on its breath was a song of fields and flowers and leafy boughs and bees that hung all day long. Out from the south blew a soft low wind. On its wing was the joy of a dream, and it hovered so near, I was sure I could hear the call of the woodland and stream. Out of the south blew a soft, sweet wind. And on its breath was a song.
The last piece I'm performing is Baetulga, written by the Korean-born composer Jean Ahn. Baetulga, Song of the Loom, is from Dr. Ahn's collection, Folksong Revisited for Voice and Piano, a project Dr. Ahn and soprano Dr. Regen Lee published in 2020. The purpose of the collection is to introduce Korean folk song to Western classical singers. The collection has 5 unnumbered pieces, and each can be performed on its own. Baetulga is from the Gyeonggi province, an area that includes Seoul and is characterized by usage of a light and bright voice. Dr. Ahn writes, "It originates from a song that seamstresses sang as they weaved clothing. Both the piano and the song center on one pitch and gradually expand its line as it revealed the hidden emotion behind the repetitive act of weaving." As you listen to our performance of the song, note how Dr. Ahn limits the pitch capabilities of the piano and uses it as percussion. Dr. Ahn lives in San Francisco. She's the director of Ensemble Ari and a lecturer at UC Berkeley. Her education includes a PhD in composition from UC Berkeley and a Bachelor of Music and Masters of Music from the Seoul National University. She has received or has been a finalist for numerous notable prizes. I have had the privilege of performing her art and communicate with her during the last year.
Ever